Everybody who took their time, especially from their lunch hour, to be here with us. I appreciate you being here. Today's topic, actually, before I get started, Teresa told me that today we have over 100 registrations, but because there's a bit of a security feature, versus just, a easy click on the link, it might take people a few minutes to flood in. So, in the interest of time, let's get started. Today, we will be discussing a very interesting and timely topic, and that is the brand of you in the AI era. How to stand out when everyone else is smart. For most of our careers, knowledge was a key differentiator. AI is changing that equation remarkably quickly. So today I wanted to explore a different question, and that is when everyone around you is getting smarter with AI, what makes someone choose you? So let me get started. A little bit about myself. I'm not going to spend much time on this at all. What makes me qualified to deliver this class isn't my knowledge about AI, but my entire career of weathering change, disruption, making pivots. There's a pretty fascinating story or two behind each of these short statements, but in the interest of time, I'm going to leave them for our future coffee chat if that opportunity ever comes across. But one thing I will say though is that while our career isn't necessarily linear, our reputation does follow us around. What happens when everyone has access to intelligence? Think about what one person with a laptop can do these days with AI that used to require a team of people, money, and expertise. That's incredibly empowering. But there's also another side to it. If everyone can produce competent work faster, competence itself becomes less differentiating. I see this in my own world, working with technology leaders across industries. Nobody needs another person in the room who can simply repeat what AI is or summarize the latest technology for them. The people who actually stand out are the ones who can say, here's what matters, here's what doesn't, here's the question we're not asking and should be asking, and here's what I think we should do. So the key takeaway here is that AI can dramatically expand your intelligence, but it cannot decide what you want to be known for. It cannot decide what you want to be known for. So, what makes you memorable then? I want you to do a thought exercise. When you're not in the room, dot, dot, dot. What three words do you want people to use to describe you? I'll give you 10 seconds here. You don't have to put the three words in the chat unless they're super great words you want everybody to know. But this is really for you. Write down the three words in your head, on your phone, on the piece of paper. What three words do you want people to use to describe you? And after you did that, think about would people you work with actually use these three words, or they would use three different words. So I want you to think about these two sets of three words and see if there's a 100% match. And if there is, congratulations, you don't need to waste time listening to this. You can go back to lunch. But if there's a gap, be that small or big, this is your personal branding opportunity. And then I'll share a story while you're thinking about it. When I left corporate life and co-founded the IT Media Group 15 years ago, I could come up with whatever fancy title to give myself, but it didn't matter. A fancy title didn't guarantee me access to the CIO network. I had to earn that access. And over time, I became known as somebody who could bring the right technology leaders into the right room to have the right kind of conversations and create that environment where people can actually open and honestly share with one another to build relationships and collaborate. That reputation became much more valuable than my title. And that leads to how I define personal brand. And here it is. Your brand isn't what you say it is. It's what others perceive, remember, and repeat. The truth is, you can nurture your brand, you can try to influence the perception, but you don't actually own your brand. Other people do. Your brand exists in their heads. It's what somebody remembers about you 6 months after first meeting you. It's what your boss says to another executive about you. It's what somebody tells a recruiter when your name came up in conversations. Most importantly, it's what gets said about you when you're not in the room. So the objective isn't to constantly tell people how wonderful you are. The objective is to create enough clarity and consistency in everything you say and everything you do so that other people can tell your story for you. And net, here's the key learning. If people can't easily describe your value, they can't easily advocate for you, and certainly can't do justice to your brand. Framework number 1, the brand equation. This is the framework we're going to use for the rest of our conversation. And what I need you to remember is that your brand is the intersection of visibility, credibility, and influence. Do they see you? Do they trust you? Do they choose you? Those are the 3 key questions. And here's the thing. You can be incredibly credible, but completely invisible. You can be highly visible and have very little credibility. Social media give us plenty examples of that. And you can have both visibility and credibility, but still lack influence. People know you, they respect you, but when the big opportunities appears, somebody else's name gets mentioned. So our goal today is to increase your chance to be seen, be known, and be chosen. Sounds good? Give a thumb up. Feel free to give a thumb up every time something resonates. One of the most dangerous pieces of career advice that we've given to people, and I've been given myself in my early days, is that just work hard, people will notice, recognitions will follow. Sometimes they do. Nothing is absolute, but often they don't. I've met extraordinarily talented professionals who would spend over 90% of their time working on getting better at their jobs, but almost no time at all making sure the organization actually understands the value they're creating. Then somebody else gets promoted and they think, hey, that's not fair, but I'm better at my job. They may be better, but unfortunately, promotions aren't awarded by an objective algorithm measuring competence. That's the reality. So imagine this. There are two equally capable people. One finishes a major AI project and immediately moves on to the next assignment. The other one finishes the same project and shares 3 lessons learned with leadership. Here's what we tried. Here's what surprised us. Here's what businesses should learn from this. Same project, same results, completely different visibility, which would very likely over time lead to completely different outcome. So it's just taking that one extra step. Doesn't take you a lot more time, but to think differently, think a little bit extra. The learning here is invisible excellence has limited career leverage. That's the hard truth. Knowing that, how do we increase our visibility and our mind share? The answer isn't post more on LinkedIn every day. I don't want you chasing exposure. I want you building signal. And let me explain. Exposure means people see you. Nothing wrong with that. However, signal means the right people see you and consistently associate you with something valuable. Let me repeat that. Exposure means people see you, but signal means the right people see you and consistently associate you with something valuable. So how do we build signals? There are 3 types of signal you must cultivate. I call it work signal, which is your accomplishment, and that is your evidence. You have to create value, full stop. Thought signal is the way you think. It's your perspective. Do you have a point of view? And human signal is how people experience you when they deal with you. Are you kind? Are you generous? Are you decisive? Are you caring? Are you the one that people actually follow? So that's the human signal. One of the most effective ways I build human signal throughout my career is that I connect people. If I know somebody who could help you, I'll make the introduction. If somebody deserves recognition, I'll give them credit. If there's a room somebody should be in, I'll try to do my best to bring them in. And something interesting happens over time. Generosity becomes a reputation, and reputation becomes a brand. The key takeaway here is you don't have to promote yourself constantly to build a powerful brand. Become useful, be consistently valuable. Okay, this is one of the simplest brand tests I use. That is, what sentence do you want others to use to introduce you? Think about that. Instead of, she's in AI, move toward, she's the person who. Imagine I introduce you tomorrow to a CEO. I say, you need to meet Sarah. She's an AI. What does that even mean? Why should I meet her? But if I change that slightly and go, you've got to meet Sarah. She's the person who makes AI understandable and actionable for business leaders. Immediately, that will generate not just the impression, but the CEO will say, wow, really? Tell me more. How does she do that? So the sentence that I just said is far more valuable than your elevator pitch because first of all, it's someone else saying it about you. And second of all, that person is associating your name to something valuable to the right people. And the point is, we must reframe the way we think about what we do. And I call it the mind progression. So the mind progression goes like this. You move from role-based to capability, to value, to perspective. And I'll give you an example. What is the role-based introduction? I work in data science. Capability, I help organizations use data better. Then value, I help business leaders turn complex data into better decision making. And a perspective, I'm known for making AI and data understandable and actionable for business executives. Same introduction in front of people, whether your peers, your managers, your executives, which one of them will leave a lasting impression? And it's not just making an impression, but driving curiosity, follow-up, and conversation. Think about that. Now, take 15 seconds here. I want to do a little thought exercise again. Finish this sentence. I'm the person who. And that I want you to think about it as your new introduction framework. I'm the person who, ... And feel free to put that in the chat if you want to. You don't have to, but I would recommend you do because that is a little bit of your personal branding opportunity in front of the audience. I'm the person who. And make sure to associate your name with a value statement. That's important. I'm the person who. And this is the mind progression from role-based to capability-based to value, and lastly, elevate that to perspective. While you're finishing your answers, let's move on. So AI makes answers cheap. That's just the reality. And judgment becomes premium. This may be one of the biggest professional shifts created by AI. We have spent decades rewarding people for knowing answers, and increasingly, everyone has access to answers. So what becomes valuable? Judgment. And what is judgment? Knowing which answers matter, which answers don't. Knowing when AI is wrong, understanding context, connecting dots between technology and business, and so on. And perhaps most importantly, asking the question. Nobody in the room is asking. And an example here is in our CIO network, and we often have these CIO roundtable conversations, and I have access to rooms full of extremely talented senior technology leaders. But here's something interesting. The most interesting person isn't necessarily the one who speaks most. Often is the person who asks one question and suddenly the entire conversation changes direction. That is influence. And that is something every one of you can practice simply by asking mindful, good, mindfully great questions. And the learning here is don't try to compete with AI on answers. You know that you won't win, but build your reputation around asking great questions and applying sound judgment. That will get you noticed. The second framework I'm going to introduce here is the career progression framework. what you produce, from what you produce to how you think, to how others perform, and what happens beyond your authority. This is one of the most important transitions in a career. At the beginning, we're rewarded largely for doing. Can you execute? Can you be a great executor? Then we're increasingly rewarded for thinking. Can you solve harder problems? As leaders, our value shifts again. Can you enable other people to succeed? And eventually, the greatest leverage comes from influence. Can you change outcomes and create following, even when you have nobody reports to you? And as professionals wanting to progress in our career journey, you have to think about the next 1 or 2 or 3 stages before you even get there. It's not a promote me, I'll learn kind of thing. It doesn't work that way. The career trap is that many very talented people get stuck in the doing forever. They keep becoming better executors when the next level requires a completely different skill sets. So the lessons learned here is the skills that made you valuable at one stage can make you completely invisible at the next stage, right? So don't get stuck. And if perception is reality, what are you known for? We have to find our own intellectual fingerprint, and I'll explain. Thought leadership doesn't mean becoming a LinkedIn celebrity. It means having a recognizable point of view. That is your intellectual fingerprint, a recognizable point of view. Ask yourself, what have I seen enough times that I understand differently from most people? What do I believe that I can defend? What patterns do I notice? An example, I'll give you an example. So someone in responsible AI might become known for not merely for creating governance frameworks, but also for her perspective of responsible AI isn't the brake on innovation. Isn't the brake on innovation. It's what allows innovation to scale. That's repeatable. That's easy to understand. And no other people. And now, not only you said it, but other people can carry your idea into rooms you're not in. Key takeaway from this segment is that expertise tells people what you know, but a point of view tells them how you think. Remember the thought signal I talked about, right? Expertise is important. That's your work signal, but continue to build your thought signal is more important. Here's another angle to look at it. Think to yourself, rather than this is what I did, this is what I've done in your reviews or in your conversations, promotional conversations, reframe that. What changed for the business because you were there? Doesn't matter what you did. What changed for your stakeholders? What is the impact? What changed for the business because you were there? We often describe our work in the language of our own profession, right? We're technologists. We talk about things like models, architecture, platforms, governance, projects. But senior leaders think differently. They think in terms of revenue, profits, cost, risk, customer retention, speed to innovation, competitive advantage. So become the bridge. And instead of, so I'll give you some examples here. Instead of saying, I implemented an AI solution, what about we eliminated 30% of manual work in this process, and I played an integral part of that cost saving and productivity gain. And instead of saying, I modernized our data platform, try this. We gave the business access to information in hours instead of weeks. And basically, you're saying your accomplishment, but completely different outcomes. And it generates completely different impressions in the minds of your executives. So lessons learned here is don't just communicate what you did, what you built, because outside of your immediate area, it might mean very little to others. Communicate what became possible because you built it. And do you know who says your name when you're not in the room? This is where careers often accelerate. You're not going to be in every room for every conversation about your future. That's just the reality. There are promotion discussions, succession discussions, bonus awards discussions, board opportunity, speaking invites, investment decisions, and so on. But someone else will be in that room. The question is, who knows your value well enough to say your name? And let me go over the key distinction here between mentors and allies and sponsors. A mentor spends time on you and advises you, and that person can be anyone in your ecosystem. Doesn't have to be someone from work. An ally echoes your viewpoint and amplifies your viewpoint, right? But a sponsor spends something way more valuable than just time. They spend their reputation. When someone says, Sarah would be excellent for this role, they're technically putting a little piece of their own credibility on the line for you. And therefore, you have to make yourself easy to sponsor. And let me share something with you. The key distinction between a mentor and a sponsor is mentor is a generosity-based relationship. Someone who's generous with their time, they would like to spend time with you to help you grow your career. But a sponsor is a value-based relationship. It needs to be a mutual value exchange there. You can't just walk up to a senior executive and say, will you be my sponsor? You have to, first of all, give them evidence. And that is your accomplishment. That is your ability to create value. And that's number one. And also, you have to really give them reasons to pay attention to you. And what I would do is put up my hand and offer help. Can I help you with this project? Can I help lead these initiatives? They have to see value in you and value that they will get from you in order for them to wanting to really put their reputation on the line for you. It's a mutual value exchange. Okay. And in my early career, this is one lesson that I learned painfully. In my corporate career, I was always a top performer, and I was selected in every high performance employee program. And I got promoted along the way. And I had plenty of allies. I had people I respect who would give me mentorship advice, but I neglected seeking out sponsors. And sponsors are senior executives. They could be several levels higher within your same organization, but those are the people that tend to get invited into rooms where key conversations are happening. And I neglected getting sponsors. I thought I'm a top performer. My work speaks for itself. I have great relationship. I'm well respected in the organization. I will get promoted. But I got passed up not once, but twice in a senior leadership role because someone else had a sponsor in the organization. And I want you to think really hard about how to seek out sponsor and really finding that sponsorship relationship throughout your career. Okay. And I don't believe, sponsors is important, but I don't believe anyone builds a meaningful career by themselves or just with a couple of people. You need a meaningful network. And relationships really work like bank accounts, or you can call them investment accounts, same idea. So relationship bank account, you have to make deposits before you make withdrawals. And deposits are your introductions, providing helpful information to others, providing support, giving recognition, invest your time, help people out when they need your help. And the withdrawals are like your asks. Can you recommend me? Can you introduce me? Can you help me find a job? And the key mistake I've seen many people make throughout their career is they build relationships only when they need to withdraw from it. But deposits takes time and it takes years of consistency before you solidify that relationship, before people who really want to help you. Think about that. Now, I wanted you to do a quick audit of your network of all the key roles. Again, you don't have to put that in the chat, just think about it. Some of the key roles like allies, sponsors, mentors, but also there are a couple others that I didn't mention previously. One is challengers. Those are the people that constantly challenge you and they give you the truth. You may not want to hear it, but they tell it as it is. They give you the level set. And that's a role you also need in your life. And of course, you need cheerleaders. You need someone who can pull you up when you're down, right? So cheerleaders, challengers, mentors, sponsors, allies, which one of those roles is absent or are absent in your network? Think about that. And that's your little networking assignment afterwards. Now, technology, we've become extraordinarily efficient at communicating online these days, ever since the pandemic, right? But efficiency isn't intimacy. Some of the most consequential conversations I've had throughout my career didn't happen in formal meetings, nor online. They happened over lunches and coffees and dinners. And that's just the reality. It doesn't matter how AI is progressing. Human relationships are still the key. And here's a practical challenge for you. I want you to identify 5 digital relationships that matter to your future and try to move one of them offline in the next 30 days. And by saying digital relationships, I don't mean you only communicate with the person online and you never met the person in person. It just simply means you don't have a deep human connection with that person that maybe you should. And maybe it's someone who's on your team and someone who could be a potential sponsor to you. And maybe it's someone who's on a cross functional team and who's also a major influencer. So I want you to think that way. And who are the individuals you simply don't have good, deep human connections with, and move that relationship offline in the next 30 days. And what I want you to take away with from this segment is that we live in a world that is super obsessed with scaling technology. And sometimes we tend to underestimate the real competitive advantage of just simply be deeply human. But the reality is AI doesn't make promotional and firing decisions. People do. The third and last framework I'm going to introduce here is called the opportunity flywheel. Now, we can put everything together. Careers don't really operate like ladders anymore. They operate more like flywheels. It starts with value creation. You create value, that creates visibility. And consistent, visible value creation builds trust. And trust deepens relationships. Relationships open the doors for you, and opportunities appear. And those opportunities allow you to create greater value, and the flywheel just accelerates. This is also why I don't think networking should ever begin with what can this person do for me? And they should start with what value can I bring to the table? What value can I bring to you in order for you to start paying attention to me? And we can start building this relationship. So think about this opportunity flywheel as the third framework. And the key takeaway here I want you to think about is you don't get better opportunities by trying to just work harder or trying to look important. You become that, you can get better opportunities by becoming more valuable, and so that you get noticed and you get remembered, right? Become valuable enough to be remembered. That's the key message. Now, I want to end, we're nearing the end of this conversation, but I want to end by challenging one assumption we've made throughout this conversation, and that is we've talked about getting promoted, getting selected, getting sponsored. But what if your next opportunity isn't something someone gives you? What if you need to create it? And let me tell you a story here. The other day, I listened to this Wall Street Journal podcast. They're interviewing this guy, 𝗕𝗃𝗄, who's a director of marketing for some ski resort in Utah. And 𝗕𝗃𝗄, on a monthly basis, will generate a report, obviously now with help of Gen AI, and he needs to present it to his executive leadership team. And the whole point is they wanted to know what's the customer sentiment, where are the market opportunities, how the resort is doing in comparison to their competitors. And 𝗕𝗃𝗄 decided to leverage Claude and do some additional research. And because he realizes nowadays more people are using Gen AI tools to build their own travel itineraries. And he wants to know when people search them up using AI, and how many times does the resort actually appear when they search for ski holidays. And as it turns out, it only shows up less than 3% of the time. So he decided to investigate further with the help of AI to figure out why that's the case and how to create remedy to solve it. So he's basically using Gen AI to reverse engineer the logic and to come up with a set of recommendations so that he can apply. And as a result, they increased the search engine optimization for AI result for the resort by 67%. And he thought, wow, I can take this and create my own AI agent, an agent, which is a tool for search engine optimization for AI. So he spent a few weekends working on this, and then he posted on LinkedIn. And he said, hey, here's the link. I created this tool. It's for our resort, for our marketing business. But if you're experiencing the same problem of not having your business show up when people search in AI and asking for recommendations, you might want to try this too. It's free of use. And my only catch is you have to, I would appreciate some feedback. Hundreds of people send him messages over LinkedIn. And fast forward a year later, something interesting happened. So he, based on the feedback, he decided to register his own business, and while still holding on this job because they're not mutually exclusive. And a year later, on his own business side, it's a subscription model, couple $100 a month, and he's bringing in 7,000 to 8,000 US dollars a month in income. And on the professional front, because he's seen as a true innovator, not only did he get to keep the job, instead of being the director of marketing for this one small ski resort, now he's the head of marketing for the entire resort chain. And what I'm trying to illustrate here is AI is collapsing the distance between an idea and something you can actually build and test. And today, somebody with domain expertise, curiosity, and a laptop can learn to build AI agents, identify a frustrating workflow, prototype a solution, and test whether somebody will pay for it. And literally in weeks. You don't necessarily need venture capital. You don't necessarily need 10 engineers or any engineer but yourself at all. And importantly, you don't necessarily have to quit your job to begin experimenting. And the point here is, ask yourself, what are you seeing that other people aren't paying enough attention to? I want you to think beyond job security and think about your career security. Your professional assets include your skills, expertise, reputation, your relationships, right? Your network, and your audience. When you post on social media, you have an audience. And increasingly, your ability to build. So that is career optionality. And to have a security in your career, to have career security, you have to have optionality. That's food for thought for you. And here's what we know. AI will continue get smarter, and some of today's skills will become obsolete. Organizations will continue to restructure. Jobs will be lost or gained or change. New businesses will emerge that we can't even imagine today. So resilience isn't knowing exactly what happens next. It's knowing whatever happens next, you have what it takes to deal with it, but more importantly, you have the agency to create value in it. And the most valuable assets right now as a professional, your visibility certainly matters, your credibility matters, your influence matters. But underneath all three are things technology cannot manufacture for you. And those are your judgment, the trust you build, your curiosity, generosity, relationships, and your agency. So I will leave you with 3 questions to reflect on. What are you struggling to be known for? Where are you trying to gain visibility or influence? And what opportunities are you trying to create? Those are my 3 questions for you to think about after this session. And I will leave you with my favorite say. So it's a quote from me, which is AI can enhance what you know, but only you can build what you're known for. And I'm a connector, so please let's connect. Connect with me. My only ask when you send me a message, if we haven't met before, is that I would love it if you could mention one key takeaway from this session. And then I promise I'll accept your connection request. So we have about 10 minutes left, and we have some time for questions if anyone has questions. And I have Frinty there, Frinty and 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗍. Thank you so much for the invite. And I know you've been helping address some of the questions throughout the conversation, but if there's additional questions you would like me to address, feel free.
If you would like to ask some questions, please raise your hands and we can call out your name, or you can also put in the chat.
Nasheen, would you mind going back to your quote? They are asking about your quote.
My what?
The quote, the slide.
The last
slide,
quote,
yeah,
your
the
favorite
last quote.
quote.
Oh, I see. My quote. Hang on. Here we go.
Shalak, if you'd like to unmute yourself, you can ask your question.
Thank you. Hi, Nasheen. How are you doing?
I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you so much for such an informative session. It was really helpful for me. But I wanted to know, how would you suggest the route or the journey for a person who is still studying in data analytics and I just started off studying, so I'm hoping that, if I start applying all these things after 6 months or a year, I can land a good opportunity. So how would you suggest someone like me who's a student, because I can't provide a value right now, which I understand is the most important thing throughout the presentation. So what would you suggest?
Yes, that's a good question. And first of all, I want you to change the way you think. When you said, I can't provide value right now. Yes, you can. You may not be able to provide the value as someone who's already working for an organization, doing a projects and trying to create impact for the business. But think about your journey. Think about the projects that you've been doing as a student. And I don't know if you've had co-op opportunities in the past, you've worked on some mock projects, and throughout your journey of studying, what are some specific things that you worked on that would make you stand out, and how is that relevant to the jobs you're applying? Right. So that's the question to think about. And secondly, it's about relationship building. And you have your own ecosystem. You have your own network in your universe. And in order to get jobs or get better opportunities, if you're just applying by sending a resume, chances are very low for you get noticed. But I would suggest you start with LinkedIn and look at your first degree connections. who maybe are already working in some of the industries and organizations that you aspire to get into, and ping those people and ask for a virtual coffee, ask for some advice. And chances are not everybody will respond to you, because it goes back to my theory that you have to put in more deposits before you start withdrawing. But most people are by nature helpful and giving and generous. And sometimes we just don't want to ask the question. So I would go through your own LinkedIn connections, see who are the first or second degree connections that you could perhaps reach out to and ask for advice or a virtual coffee, and start there.
Got it. Okay. Thank you so much, Nasheen. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so I wanted to let you know that if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to myself on LinkedIn, or reach out to Frincy or Parisa from Women in AI, and we'll make sure to get your questions addressed. And I do still offer this class in a workshop format, working directly with organizations as one of the professional development program. And if you're interested, reach out to me to discuss that, and I'd be more than happy to as well.
There are a couple of more questions, Nasheen, in the chat.
Okay.
There's one question about, can you share a bit more about finding a sponsor?
Yes, absolutely. So a sponsor, as I said, is different, slightly different from a mentor. Not to say a mentor cannot be a sponsor, but usually a mentor can be someone in your network, but it doesn't have to be necessarily within the company you work for. But a sponsor is different. A sponsor should be a person who's in a senior role and who often is present at important conversations and in the senior leadership capacity. So I would identify, first of all, the individual or individuals, and it doesn't have to be just one sponsor. It could be multiple. Identify who they are. Are they the people that you want to learn from? Are they the people who will be a good role model and example for you? That's first of all, because that's important to me. Our value systems need to align. It doesn't matter how powerful you are in a position. If you're not a kind person, I'm not going to try to bend over backwards and ask you to be my sponsor. So the value system has to be aligned. Once you identify the individuals, then again, it goes back to the value creation. It's a value-based exchange. It's about, what have I done to help them before ask for them to help you, right? So there's specific strategies. Like you could approach someone and ask for a meeting. And sometimes it might be easier to start with a mentorship conversation and eventually evolve that into a sponsorship conversation. Because the entry point to say, hey, can you sponsor me, and put my name in the hat when there's promotional conversation is like, but why? But if you ask someone to be kind and perhaps spend some time with you, maybe half an hour a month, just to provide some guidance, start there. That would be an easier entry point. And once you get there, you have to make sure the person actually understands your value as it related to what they're trying to achieve. And so in another word, is you have to understand what the sponsor is measured on. What are their business goals and objectives? And how is what you do, what your business area is going to help them advance their goal? So that conversation also needs to be had to make sure that you have higher visibility and higher credibility in front of them. And once they see you're a truly valuable person for them to be nurturing, and that will move the needle. I hope that addresses the question.
Jane, there's plenty of more questions, but
Okay.
and the next one, if we could get it fast so we could cover more. How do you get around the noise to someone? As in, many times, even if we put the effort and handwrite the content for the outreach, people are more on the defense given the rise of AI generated content. I'm here referring to cold outreach mainly.
So how do you, can you repeat the very first point?
Get around the noise to someone, because there's like tons of cold outreaches to the person basically.
Mm-hmm. So this is interesting. I mean, you probably are in a sales role asking this question, or I'm just making an assumption here. And again, the cold outreach, I'm never a big fan of. And instead of cold outreach, I'll give you an example. Yesterday, I got a warm introduction from a CIO in our network, and he's trying to connect me with a vendor. But he's someone I trust. And because he's worked with me for over 10 years, and every time he sends me an introduction, I pay attention. I immediately respond. Then I look at the person's name, and the name rings a bell. So I go to my LinkedIn, and I received a connection request from him a month ago. And I never bothered to respond because he's in a sales role. And not that I don't respond to salespeople, it's just if I haven't met you, sometimes I don't accept you unless you give me a good reason to. And he did not give me a good reason to at the time. But all I'm saying is try a different strategy. So what this person did is he really tried to connect with me, but he knew I'm not responding to him. So he went to the strategy that I just spoke about to address the question number one, is he went to the LinkedIn network and figured out we have a new mutual connection. And that mutual connection happened to think highly of him and of both of us. And when that mutual connection made that introduction, I responded within 5 minutes. And now we have a meeting scheduled next week. So try a different strategy is my answer. I think time's up. I don't want to take too much time from everybody or from your lunch, but I think there's a bit of a food for thought, pun intended, for you during your lunch hour. All the questions that didn't get addressed, I spoke with 𝗕𝗃𝗀𝗻 ahead of time that we will capture them, and then I will go through them and make sure we give you what you were asking for. Thank you so much, everyone. And I look forward to your LinkedIn connection request with your one key takeaway.
Thank you
Really
so much,
enjoyed this
Nasheen.
conversation. And even though it's more of a one-way conversation with myself, but thanks again, 𝗕𝗃𝗻𝗻, for the invite.
No,
Have a
it
great
Thank you
day.
so
wasn't
much.
actually a one way. Like while you were teaching us a lot of food for thought,
Yeah.
there were tons of engagements on the chat. And I wanted to thank you so much, Nasheen, for the insightful and inspiring masterclass. I know that I learned a lot, and the key thing that I'm taking is that they communicate what became possible because of what I built. Even as the nature of our work changes, human agency will remain in the center of what we create and what we accomplish. So thank you so much again. We are really excited for what happens next.
Thank you. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Thank you, Nasheen. Thank you,
All right.
Tirsa. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.